can be considered by the council in terms of how their assessment is calculated. The assessments, in general terms, are based on front footage in the case where we have reconstruction projects, and it boils down to about a 70-30 split, with 70% of the project itself in terms of the streets and utilities being borne by the city. The other 30% is allocated to the property owners on a front footage basis, and that's based on a 40-foot curb opening, 7-ton design with 8-inch sanitary sewer and water mains. The exception to that is the utility services themselves from the main line out to the property line are considered private and are therefore assessed at 100%. And then there are corner lots and irregular shaped lots that are handled differently. And if there are those that have questions on those, we can certainly address those separately, or even more so at the assessment hearing, which comes at a subsequent time. The assessment hearing itself, in some instances, we've actually held the assessment hearing prior to the construction itself. In this case, I would recommend if this project were to move forward, it would be in the fall after much of the construction has taken place. And what that can do is we have a better handle on what the actual construction costs are, and in terms of this particular project, the scheduling itself wouldn't permit actually probably getting the construction done in time to get pavement back on the street. This is a very compressed schedule, as we'll see here. But at the assessment hearing, the thing I want to point out there is that anyone that's affected by this project and receiving an assessment would again be notified both in the paper and by mailing that they'd be able to come back in and make their thoughts heard and known at that hearing. At that point, we'd have the actual construction costs as well as anything that's been added or subtracted during construction. It is at that point where you set the terms of the assessment in terms of how many years to pay it back and what percentage interest is typically charged or going to be charged. Just a little bit about the schedule. Obviously, it depends on the results of the improvement hearing. There are three options, three different pathways that this project can go at this point. One is that the project is voted on by the council and it's voted in a negative fashion, and the project would die at that point and it would not continue moving forward. Another option is for the council to table the motion and either ask for additional information, or in this case maybe it would be to gain the input of the additional council members and mayor that are not in attendance this evening. And the third option, which actually cannot happen this evening, is for the project to move forward. And one thing I want to make note there is that for this assessment project to move forward, one procedural step that has to occur is that you'd have to have a 4/5 majority vote by the council. And with only 4 members of the council here this evening, any vote that you would take on it would result in a failure of that motion. So if the council wants to actually have the possibility of that occurring, you'd have to wait for at least one more council member to be present. As I said, it takes a 4/5 majority, and in this case that means 5 out of the 6 council members to vote for the project. If this project were to move forward, and really that's the other options themselves result in it dying, but we would have a significantly abbreviated design period to try to get this project in yet this year. We'd be looking at virtually 4 weeks for design, and that would still allow for approval of the plans and about a 4-week advertisement and bidding period that's required for a project such as this. We would be looking for an award and contracts at the beginning of August if the bid was favorable, and potentially then starting early August for construction. So hopefully I've gone through and answered I guess the general questions that are out there in terms of what the project is, what it consists of, what it's going to cost. I know that the individuals along the project received a copy of the preliminary assessment roll and can certainly look through what the project means in terms of financial impacts to them. They're certainly able to ask those questions here tonight, but the main purpose, I guess I'd reiterate,